Meet Theresa Davis, a poet, author, educator, self-proclaimed pirate, and MC of Java Speaks, a live workshop for spoken word artists and musicians.
Over a long and impressive career, Theresa has made waves, gaining notice for her talent as well as her activism, all while nurturing the next generation of artists and performers.
Welcome to Scratch, Claw, Push, a podcast about artists clawing out a place for themselves in the world. I'm Billy Jo Combs.
And I'm Brendan Duke. Let's go. Yeah, so at the outset of the show, we like to start every episode off with what we call the 60-second intro. Billy's going to time you, and you've got 60 seconds to tell us who you are and what you do. And after that, we deep dive. So, okay. Billy?
You all set?
Yep.
And go.
I'm Theresa Davis. I am a published author, poet, and National Poetry Slam champion. I am the mother of 3. Currently, I am the literary director for the Arts Exchange Community Cultural Arts Center in East Point, Georgia. And I talk for a living, and I create opportunities for others for a living. That's 60 seconds.
You got 30 left.
What?
Oh, man. See,
that's
good.
Yeah,
so I do community outreach. I'm also a teaching artist. If you want me to come to your kids' school and teach them how to do poetry, you should totally do that. And my website is artist Theresa Davis on Wixsite. There we go. You can find me on Instagram at She Pirate Poet. Oh.
Yeah, see, you got the pro level, pitch. Like that's like we've got there's been like a few people who've managed to get it to like a tight 30 seconds, and that's we call that the pro level. Nice. So you're in that club.
Yay.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if we should start like inching it down, just see like, okay, go. You got 10 seconds now. Tell me what you do. Right. But I think that's too. I don't know. I like.
Yeah, no, your brain would just sizzle and freeze.
Yeah,
right?
Some people like are really good at it, and then other people you can kind of tell they're kind of the wheels are kind of spinning. Like especially because like Billy's theory is that we can all just instinctively feel what a minute is, and you can literally tell people like they're kind of getting close to that minute, and they're like, okay, gotta cut it off.
Yeah. No, I'm good at that because the National Poetry Slam, when I won Women of the World Poetry Slam. That slam has a 1-minute poetry round, a 2-minute poetry round, a 3-minute poetry round, and a 4-minute poetry round.
Wow.
And that 1-minute poem, man.
That is crazy to me. I mean, I've seen you perform quite a bit, so I know you're capable, but I still think like just like a minute to do a poem. Cause I mean, like then it kind of like limits how you can take like the dramatic pauses and that's, I really admire like slam poets because in addition to having to write it, you have to perform it. And that's kind of a different animal entirely. What got you into that? Was that like, were you always someone who has kind of had like a thing for performance or writing, or did one thing lead to the other, or how, like, tell us how that you got into that?
So my parents are both artists and creatives. So they're both writers. My mother's Alice Lovelace, was considered the godmother of poetry and spoken word in Atlanta. And my father was Charles Jicky Riley, who's the lead singer for Jicky and the Stonefish Posse, which is a reggae band. So I really tried hard not to be a poet because I felt like they had it covered. They were doing a good job. And then when my dad passed away, one of the last things he said to me was that I was trying to disappear, but he could see me. And that moment on, I decided that I was going to be visible. So I started writing again. I used to write a lot. So I started writing again, and then I started going to open mics kind of religiously. And it started with Java Monkey. So I think the first time I ever performed poetry, it was at Java Monkey, and met Kodak, and we became fast friends and are still good friends. And then while we're doing, the open mic, I meet my friend Karen G, and she is in the poetry slam, and I don't know what this beast is. So I'm like, take me to the poetry slam so I can see if I want to be involved, And so we went to Albuquerque, the National Poetry Slam that was happening in Albuquerque that year. And I was just blown away by the craft of it. Like how to tell a complete, I've always been a storyteller, but how to tell a complete story that resonates with strangers in 3 minutes. Something about that whole mind, that whole concept just like spoke to me. Because I do consider myself to be a great storyteller, and I love words. So it was very challenging for me, and I'm okay. I've been around performers my whole life, and so I was always that kid who, we at the protest rally, and your parents were like, go say that poem I made you memorize. But now I'm doing my own poems, right? So that's how I got in on the poetry slam, and then I just got hooked on it. And it's one of those things to where I think, it's not for everybody. I think you have to have kind of a thick skin and not take yourself too seriously, because you're literally saying things from the heart and then giving 5 random people who may or may not know anything about poetry or words permission to give you a score. And that score could be from 0 to 10. 0 being that's awful, 10 being, oh my God, I want to tattoo that poem on my body. But, I've seen poets who think they can do this and they go up and they get like a bad score and it just turns them off writing, period. Not because that whole, you can't separate the poetry slam from, it's like there's all kind of poetry, but they just stop forever. But see, me, I wear it as a badge of honor. I once got a negative 0.3 and a 10 on the same poem.
How did they get you in negative numbers?
I'm just saying it made you feel something to go to extra work to tell me how much you hated something that obviously made you feel something, because you put in all that extra work for a score that doesn't even count.
Wow.
So that's what I love about it. It's like, even in your negative number score, I made you feel something. Probably, for the first time today.
Yeah, that's almost like the number equivalent of a squeal for pain. It's like,
right. No, I love it. I'm like,
that's impressive. Like, I mean, it's yeah, I can see this, because it's not like, okay, they give you like a tepid, like 1 or 2, even like a 3 or something. They're like, no, negative numbers.
So many of them. Yeah.
Wow. That is
so
go ahead.
I want to, before we like zoom past it too much, you said that when your dad passed away, so I assume I don't know, it feels very personal, but he said to you that you were disappearing, and that touches me because I've been told similar things in my life. So I'm curious, at that point, what were you doing with your life? What were you engaged with?
I was doing all the things that I wanted to do. Like I was a teacher, classroom teacher. I was in the classroom for almost 30 years. I love teaching. But I was also a mom, and I was doing all the things. I was unhappy. And I think that, I don't know if my dad knew I was queer before he passed, but it was like, you need to love who you want to love and just keep it pushing, because you're trying to disappear. So a lot of my disappearing would be not actively doing those things that make me happy. I've always had the ability to multitask. Like I can go teach school all day and go do something else at night or do this, but I was literally kind of hermiting myself and not really in touch with, I was going through the motions of being happy, but I wasn't happy, and then, shortly after his passing, I actually did come out. My husband at the time was quite surprised. But yeah, it was a process of like trying to figure out how what are the ways that I am not happy, right? Like I'm not like miserable, like but I'm just kind of close to it,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was a lot going on, but it's great now.
So did the art end up causing the changes Or so which came first, the changes or the art?
I think I was very much into the art, and then my disengagement is what provoked the changes to get me back into my art. If that makes sense. Makes sense to me. Yeah.
So like when you got in when you get involved with like Java Monkey, and eventually like now it's called Java Speaks because some jackass burned the place down. For those of you who don't know, Java Monkey was like a coffee shop in Decatur, Georgia, which had this little back porch area that actually had surprisingly good acoustics for what it is, and people out there performed it. If you we'll actually put up I have clips online of Kodak Harrison performing. We recorded his show like at the 17th anniversary. We also have a clip of Theresa performing at Smith's old bar doing the poem talking about her father passing. It is just fire, pure fire. And but yeah, like that, getting involved in that, and now you're kind of gone from the not just performing, but now you're mentoring other performers.
Yeah.
Like
trying to.
yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us about kind of like that process. And like, I know you were already a teacher before.
Right.
So was it just kind of like a natural extension of that, or is it kind of, is it a different beast?
Well, it's different. I think that, being a teacher certainly helps in things like time management and what are we focusing on here. And, but when Java stopped being in a physical space, I created a virtual space for it. So we're still virtual now because it's like once you create, and this is my probably, I know, I think everybody, once I created this community and I have people that regularly show up from Canada and from Massachusetts and Denver, like all these different places. After 2 years, it felt kind of heartless to be like, okay, deuces, the world's over, we're done. See, it felt like I couldn't do it, right? So I still keep it virtually, and I think I'm going to keep that platform virtually. If I ever do something back in person, it'll be under a completely different name. But the mentoring comes in the form of a lot of different things. So, like, there are some poets who just want to write. They want to write. They want to get this project out, and it's not. I don't just do poetry. I do prose, creative writing, a lot of different things. So I created a series of workshops so that if you're working on a project, be it your memoir, a novel, or that 2 years you got to sit with yourself, you thought about some things, and you want to get those ironed out. That's one kind of coaching that I do. And then there are some young poets who are trying to who got into Poetry Slam during the pandemic, which is basically you sitting in a chair and performing, or figuring out how to set up a space to stand up and perform. But that's completely different than being on an actual stage in front of an actual audience, right? The nuances change, and trying to get folks to understand that. Like, when you're in an actual space, you get to feel that reciprocal energy that you don't feel when you are, in your house, right? So, and that reciprocal energy could either push a performance or kill it. So you have to be able to read a room, and you can't read a room in a Zoom room. I'll say it again. You can't read a room in a Zoom room, because there's no way for you. You don't know what those people are feeling. You can't get the empathy from them. Hell, they may not even be wearing pants. You don't know. But it's a different type of energy. It's a different type of movement when you're connecting your voice to your body to an audience, right? So this is my second slam that I'm throwing here. That's going to be on September 23rd if you're interested. But when we did the first one in April for National Poetry Month, we did that slam with the conjunction of Poetry Slam coaching, right? Because Poetry Slam is performance poetry, right? If you're a page poet, which I can be, you can perform page poetry in a slam venue. but you have to remember you are doing a performance, right? So that leap from getting off the page to doing it on the stage is something that's it's easy for some people, but it's really tricky for some people. And a lot of folk who want to share their voice or feel it's not a quiet sport, you know. It doesn't necessarily have to be a shouting sport, but it's not a quiet sport. You know, you have to be in control of your voice. You have to mean what you say and mean it enough to be loud enough so that other people hear what you say. You know, and then just teaching like basic things that, you know, I think a lot of people forget about. Like when I say this is an inclusive event, right? I want everybody to be included, right? And because we don't know everybody in the audience, when you step away from a microphone trying to do a poem and one of your judges, you don't know, may have hearing issues. Now they can't hear you, and now you can't score well from that person because you made the poetry suddenly inaccessible to them, right? So yeah, just teaching kind of some common sensey stuff, but then also just tools if you want to go forward in this. You know, like I was a successful poetry slammer for 18 years. Yeah. Dang, I'm old. But I think that, you know, my reputation and my writing chops have got dimmed because I do love it when I happen to walk into a venue where a slam is happening and people get worried. I love it. That's my favorite song.
You see them get shook.
I love it.
So how much did your style like change from when you were writing before to when you actually started performing it? Because at a certain point, do you start tailoring? I mean, I don't know, like some people, because like some people's style is definitely like even just like people who write prose.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can tell they're writing for the page versus writing for, you know, speaking it out loud. Was like, how was that transition for you, or was it even difficult?
It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't difficult. I think that the way I write, because it is so steeped in storytelling, I think it translates either way. I've never actually sat down and said, I am going to write a slam poem. You know, I often have sat down and been like, I am really pissed off right now. Let me just write for 35 minutes and just see if I can get it out of my system. Then I'll share it. And somebody goes, oh, no, that's a poem. So I guess it depends on what room I'm in. But it wasn't hard for me to go from where I was, which was before I started doing performance poetry and writing books. Was more of a heavy duty journaler. You know what I mean? Like, like a little step up above diary entries, but like I was a ruthless journaler. And a lot of those things that I journaled, you know, going back and look at them eventually became metaphors or ideas for poems to jump off of. Yeah.
So I'm curious, does what you do, I mean, what did you teach, and does that ever influence your work?
Oh, always. Yeah. I was a middle school. I started off as a kindergarten first grade teacher. Then I was a second and third grade teacher. And then I went crazy one year and was a kindergarten first, second, and third teacher. Never do that. It was wild. And then I eventually went into middle school, which was my sweet spot. I love middle schoolers because they're it's like they still want your acceptance, but they're really judgy. You know, it's like that weird balance.
Sounds like a fun poetry audience.
Right, exactly. And if I could get them to believe what I'm saying and to trust what I'm doing, then I've won. And often a lot of my poetry was born in the classroom, and it got to the point where they could tell when if an idea hit me and I got in poetry mode, they could tell, and they got real good, like real quiet, which was my key that I had toned out. You know, so it's like, okay, let me get back to actually working. But No, a lot of the writing time and a lot of the time I spent in the classroom was really, really helpful. I mean, I think that um, working with young people has always been something I've been very passionate about. It's even in my like now I'm an independent contractor, and you know I still as an independent contractor go to different schools and you know if like I just got invited to formerly Renfro because a couple of years ago before the pandemic they had a poetry club going over there and I went over and talked to them and you know coached them before their poetry slam and so they invited me back um, and you know I'm like usually it's the poetry club's like we got this money from a bake sale would you please come in yeah but I'm not going to say no to children you know I love going and working with young people so that classroom now if I could start my own guerrilla school and teach the children what they really need to learn, it would be so amazing. And they would also be
The
poets at
Theresa
the
Davis
end.
School of the Arts.
Right?
Yeah, so like I'm curious. It's like I mean, because like slam poetry, I think it's pretty well known now. Have you noticed like any kind of like changes as you've been doing? Like you've been doing it long enough, like you've been able to kind of track it for
Yeah.
a while. Have you noticed like any substantial changes, over the years?
Yeah, I mean, it has definitely changed. It's definitely become more acknowledged as an art form. I know during the pandemic, so many of us got love from corporations who were like, you know, we're gonna do this in like a poetry kind of style, and so a lot of the poets who were actively doing that kind of thing were given opportunities. I was contacted by the Arizona branch of the Planned Parenthood for their anniversary fundraiser to redo one of my poems for them so they could use it as part of their national, you know, thing. And they could have easily snatched that bad boy off YouTube, but they were like, no, we want to pay you. You're an artist to do this thing, right? So they repaid. They paid me to redo my poem, "What to Do When a Politician Tries to Fall Into Your Vagina Feet First." That's the whole title, and it became part of their campaign, right? And so that I think there's lots more recognition for the art. But I think what I would like to see is more like a lot of the young people that I work with doing this art form. They want to write poems, they want to write books, but they don't read poetry.
Mm.
So it's like, and my question is, okay, so you want to write books, but you yourself don't read books. Why would anybody want to read yours? Right? Like you have to build on what you know, right? You have to be open to different ideas and be inspired by different things. If you're just running around your same hamster wheel, you're how many times are you going to be inspired by the same thing? So I think it's really important for anybody to read, to step outside of their comfort zone a little bit, just to see if they, you know, just be open to the idea of learning something new or risking, oh my God, the possibility of being inspired in a different way. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like any field of like artistic or not, you always have to have like a base of knowledge of
Yeah.
stuff to go in there. And like with the arts, like it's usually, I mean, I was going to ask you about like your influences because especially it's because yeah, it's like because that's all. It's always that I guess it's that filter. Like whatever you get is it's gonna that was the old Picasso saying. Was it amateurs borrow, pros steal. I'm paraphrasing, but that's that
Yeah.
idea of like we all get something from somewhere else and then you have to try and make it your own.
Right.
So like for
Right.
you, like who are those people that like kind of lit your fire in the beginning or who's doing it now?
Well, I mean, I had the honor in hindsight because at the time when you're living something you don't appreciate the hell out of it at all, right? So I had the honor of growing up with parents who came to Atlanta at the time when Atlanta was starting to boom for Black artists, right? When it became like Black Mecca, and Maynard Jackson was making all kind of awesome things happen for Black artists, right? So with that explosion of all this Black artists coming into Atlanta, my childhood hanging out at my house on a random Saturday night, anybody could be in the backyard, from Tony K. Bombara to Amiri Baraka. Like, they could just be there, Pearl Clay hanging out, like those were my mom's peers. So, I had this wealth of knowledge around me, but who you don't appreciate nothing at 12, I think.
Well, plus, if that's just your reality, you
right,
probably at the time thought that was normal. You're just like, oh, mom's friends are hanging.
Making me go get them drinks and whatnot. But yeah, I'm the bartender. It was just weird. But in hindsight, I'm like, wow, you just like really had all that gold that right in the room, and didn't even know it because you're right, it was my reality. So as an adult, and when I started becoming more of a writer and finding my own voice, I also knew those voices that spoke to me. So I do read a lot of Tony K. Bombara. I read a lot of bell hooks. I love Nikki Finney's poetry, so I love Nikki Finney. I read a lot of that. Patricia Smith is someone who has always inspired me. I also kind of like fall back on my favorite poets who write love poetry or sonnets or whatever. Like, I like my Nerudas. I like my I read a lot. And I'm constantly looking for some new ways to be inspired. And it's I'm so grateful to so many of the folks that I came up with in the slam community, because now a lot of them have these huge like list of books. They write books that I can read. Yes. And then coming when they travel to town, being able to see them and just be inspired in living history, right? Like, knowing the person who is inspiring you, to me, it's a gift. Everybody doesn't get to have that. So yeah. So I've been reading lately. Is it here? No, it's at the house. So right now we're doing. I'm a teaching artist with Seven Stages Theater here in Atlanta, and we do the NEA Big Read. So right now we're doing Ilya Kaminsky's Deaf Republic, and we're working with Emory University right now. Some of the students over there, and it is just so refreshing to hear their takes on poetry, and actually, be in a situation where you're asking someone what they think, and they believe you, because we're actually discussing art, knowing how subjective art can be, but also, and hopefully inspiring them to figure out how other ways to create. And especially being an institution like Emory, it's like when it gets too stressful, how to take yourself offline mentally and actually clear it with art, and then freshen yourself up to go back to what you were doing, right? Hopefully that answered your question. Brandon, I go on and on and on.
Oh no, that was good. Now I was actually, because like you kind of lead me into another thing. I was like said, like with the pandemic, I think like a lot of artists kind of struggled, just because like you suddenly had all that external kind of stuff that like you might draw on for inspiration suddenly just got taken away in a lot of instances. Is there any, like, I guess, for lack of a better term, like coping strategies or things you learned to do during that time that you've been able to kind of bring forth now that, like we're back out in the world, that like are something that you learned to kind of keep the inner fires burning? Or
well, actually, that was really 2020 was really, really hard for me. I'm trying to reach you something. Hey, Tia, grab me the little Prince house, wherever it is over there. So 2020 was it might be in here still.
yeah.
So 2020 was really, really hard because as a teaching artist, at that time, I was in a classroom on a Friday. I told the kids I would be back, and I lied. but it wasn't my fault, right? The
You were
world,
made into a liar. You didn't lie. That's
right?
different.
The world literally closed, but they closed the schools, and that's where I work.
Yeah.
So I literally lost all the rest of my year income just like that, right? And so so it was just like I literally had. I'm not gonna lie, I might have fetal position for about a month because I was like, I like living in a house. I like when I hit the light switch and lights come on. I like
being
food.
able to eat.
Right. Food is delicious. So everything just seemed so big and out of proportion for me that part of me getting back to myself was I had to go small. So when I was in high school, whenever I got stressed out or high school and early college, when I get stressed out, I would make miniatures. So I went back to small things. So I've been making these miniature little rooms.
Nice. And then it's prints to boot. So I definitely like that.
So I started doing this. So actually people, kind of got into the mini things that I was making. I'm actually doing a mini room scene workshop in October here at the Arts Exchange called It's Not a Nightlight, It's Art, Damn It. That's the name of the workshop. But like I had to get small just to like put things in perspective, right? And then kind of went back to when I first started touring and performing, the 4 agreements, of like not taking things personally, not, being impeccable with my words and, just being really super focused on what I actually wanted and what made me happy. I think a lot of people, 2020, when it took us off the grid, a lot of people realized they were not happy, but they didn't have this opportunity to realize that because if you don't have people around you who knew you when you were happy and notice when that light has gone, that all they see is all you see is yourself working constantly. So I think when people had to sit down and not work constantly, they were like, oh, wait, I'm actually not happy. And had to figure out some new strategies on how to do that. And so for me now, having my mental happiness, being happy is a thing. Like, and I'm grateful and privileged in this way to be able to not take jobs that I don't want to take. Like, if I feel like this is going to be a headache or a hassle, I don't have to do that, right? I have other options, or I just hustle work for myself, right? So I think that, my what happened to me over there is like I stopped sweating. I started sweating small stuff, and I stopped letting myself feel overwhelmed by things I can't control, right? And kind of focusing on what made me happy. So like my bubble was super, super small. So my relationship with my children grew stronger. Their relationships with each other grew stronger, which was like amazing. We have had some of the most hilarious shopping trips you ever want to be on. And those are those pods that make us happy, right? So spending time with family. I actually like my own company. Who knew? So I was able to start a couple of other creative projects. I've been trying to write these 2 novels forever. So I got time to spend time with them. And now my re-entry is the part that's tricky. Because I'm like, I want to go to that. But, people are going to be there.
I know that thing. Like it's got to be like, especially I think it's not just that, you were away from everybody for so long, but I feel like what we've seen out of other people is like now you're kind of going to like a place where there's a lot of people you don't know. You're just kind of like, I don't know, man.
Right. What's the potential for drama here?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm getting better though. I'm getting better. I did my first storytelling event in a couple of weeks ago. I think that I went to a burlesque show this week.
Hey.
And I'm starting to get back into performing, doing more. So I'm opening the schedules back up. And Rise in Appalachia reached out, and I'm going to be jumping on tour with them in April next year. So it looks good to have future gigs. Yeah, and growing my new set of locks. But that's what we're doing now.
Yes, for those of you who may just be seeing Theresa for the first time, she had a glorious head of locks at one point. Yeah.
Yep. They got. I cut them off. We cut off what 4 feet. 4 feet.
Whoa.
4 feet of hair.
Man, yeah, I know you. I can't. I remember like the one video I have of you. I think they're at least halfway down your back.
Yeah, by the time we cut them, they were at my calf. Yeah, and I had to constantly keep them tied up because they touch the floor. I'm grossed out. You know, you sit down and somebody sits too close next to you. Now they're sitting on your hair. That's kind of gross. So when I cut them off, it was so weird. I was like, I woke up the next morning. I slept for 12 hours straight. My son was like, I kept putting the mirror under your nose. Make sure. I was exhausted. Who knew?
Your neck must be well.
Yeah, it was like the strain on
strong.
Yes, I didn't know I had neck pain. I didn't know I had back pain from my hair. I was like, what? So yeah, it's been exciting starting over. But you know, so much of my brand was tied into that look. That you know, it was interesting coming back out in the world and seeing people that I worked with for years and years and years, and them not recognizing me because of hair. Is that kind of sad? But also, like, I don't think my face has changed.
No, is that kind of? I mean, is it totally freeing? Because like I'm a natural blonde, and when I darkened my hair, people didn't recognize me. Even my mom was like, "I don't recognize you," and I'm like, but my face hasn't changed, right?
Right.
So
right.
And you're my mom, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm wondering, like, was it freeing? Do you feel like this sense of renewal from that, where you know, did that influence, like, oh, I could do anything now?
Well, I mean, it I think it made me relax a little bit more, you know, and it definitely took pressure off of my body, because it's like I'm already getting older, and then some of the things I thought were me getting older were no, it wasn't getting older. It was you have 25 pounds of hair on your head. That's what was hurting your back.
Did you weigh it?
Age. We used to weigh it often, but now it's in a big bag in my house. I haven't thrown it out yet. I want to do a burning,
like a ceremony,
something. Yeah, and I still have my dad, when he cut his locks before he passed. I have his last set of locks as well. So I want to be able to burn them all together somehow. We'll figure it out. Yeah,
that sounds like a beautiful ritual to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that is sort of like in college. Like when I first went to college, I had like long hair, and my hair was like super curly, so I had to like throw out to here before it got heavy enough to fall down. And when I finally cut it, like I was walking down the sidewalk, and my roommate, who I'd known since I started, like for a couple of years at that point, I'm like, I think I'm waving at him, and he's kind of giving me a look like
who's this dude?
To the point where like he was starting to get like he told me when he saw me, like he was getting like, who is this guy like just coming at me like this, like because like I went from like having hair down to like my shoulders to suddenly just like a real just kind of like very almost like conservative like short hair cut, and he just like did not recognize me till I was like within like 10 feet of him.
Yeah, you know, our minds are crazy places.
Yeah. So like, so you're working with the Arts Exchange in Atlanta. Tell us a little bit more about what they do, and I guess like what's your. I know you touched on it in the intro. Like what do you do for them?
The Arts Exchange is known as the Southeast Community Cultural Arts Center. So we used to be in Grant Park, over there behind gentrified Kroger, where the prison is, the women's prison, women's prison was. Or still is. So we used to be in Grant Park, and then we moved to East Point. And we have been here ever since. So in total, next year will be the Arts Exchange's 40th year of existence. And it's basically, this space has, we have artist studios, right? So we have several studio artists who have open studio sessions with people come throughout in and out the center. We have a dance studio here that has two spaces in this place. We have the Jack Sinclair Art Gallery, which we do a new art show every couple of months. We do a couple of juried shows a year. And the show that's up right now is called The Haunts of Black Kirby. It's a lot of Afrofuturism, and there's a lot of programming that is happening at the Arts Exchange around Afrofuturism and the exhibit itself. I am the literary director here. So what I do is I create writing workshops. I host an open mic here every second Friday of the month. And usually that comes with a feature. And I try to find someone in the community or an artist in the area that, is representative of what we do and kind of can conduct a writing workshop, because they'll be my feature for that Friday, and then they'll do the next Saturday's writing workshop. I also host Scrabble Club for those who like to get beat in Scrabble, because I'm going to beat you. It's going to happen. That's my goal. You might beat me, but my goal will always be to beat you. I'm just saying. That's who I am as a person. And I love Scrabble. So I love any literary game, I'm going to do it. So I have Scrabble Club here every third Saturday. I do an ekphrasis writing workshop. That an ekphrasis art is when you respond to another piece of art, a written response to another piece of art. So basically they come in a gallery, pick out a painting or a title of a painting, and that becomes a poetry prompt or your short story writing prompt, and you write using whatever is in the image, whatever you think came before the image or after. And so it's a really cool creative writing process. And then when we're not doing that, we're doing that. This is the project that I'm working on. Give me feedback. Those workshops and any other opportunities that I see that can enhance literary, visual, artist work. I try to provide that. We did a workshop called the Artist Toolbox a couple of months ago virtually on how to write a proper bio and the difference between an artist statement and a bio, because they are not the same thing. So those kind of tools where people may not know, and because we live in this world of the tweet or the X, whatever we're calling it right now, I'm trying to get grants so I can pay every artist that comes through here, right? That's my whole goal. I want to pay people. I want you to understand that your art has value. You have value. You should be paid, right? So I'm trying to write a grant, but if you give me a tweet of a bio, nobody's going to pay for that because you haven't told me anything, right? So a bio, just learning what the difference in a bio has changed some of these young people's lives, because that's why you weren't getting funded, because you weren't giving information, you weren't giving the information that is needed. So I try to do, it's my role here. I try to do as much as I can to promote literacy and to help young artists in any genre be successful by providing tools to help them get into those doors.
Wow. It sounds like you do so very much. And so often what we're asking people in this is, how do you piece together the puzzles of a creative life and find time to make your own work if you have to make a living,
Yeah.
Do you ever struggle with that, or?
It's really interesting. I think that's the other thing that 2020 did for me. Like, even as much as I told you that I do, right? I will still sit here some days and be like, you haven't done shit, Theresa. What is going on? And I'm like, wait, you did like 20 things. So it's tricky in that way of how our brain thinks, So I do have, I do my work, and because I work on my own schedule, I'm able to, if I've got to fill out 4 applications for grants for these next 4 artists that are coming through, I try to get it all done, right? All the heavy lifting early done, and then I go make my art, my little stuff, or go paint outside, with my watercolors. So I'm able to manage my time better now that I am in control of it myself. and rather than having to punch a clock and somebody tell me what to do with their awful job. And when my boss messes up, I get to fuss at her. And she listens because she knows me very well.
Nice. All right, I have to ask because it's nothing I notice in all your bio. Like, what is the pirate thing? It's even on your bio under on your website
and above her head.
Yeah.
Yes.
Orders.
Yeah. So when I was a teacher, I used to say that I was a pirate, and I was coming into their lives, to young people's lives, to steal the apathy from them so they would not be apathetic human beings. And then one year, I said something similar to that, and one of my second graders said, no, I do believe that there were good pirates, and you're a good pirate. So you're the pirate. You're stealing stuff from us we don't need, and you're giving us the stuff that we do need. And so I was like, I like that, So I kind of like kept that as my thing. So yeah, I love the idea, that idea that she put in my head. So that's kind of been my persona. And early on in my career, I performed I had a pirate jacket, leather, black suede, brown suede. I like long flowy things. So it was kind of that look that I had anyway, and then my alter ego is She Pirate, and her pen is also a sword.
I love it.
Nice.
So yeah. But no, I just like that idea, and the fact that young people put it in there as the way they see me, and it not being a negative thing, it being a very positive, uplifting thing for them.
That sounds
it's
like
an
a
aesthetic.
really an aesthetic. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's a thing. I guess like some people they like steampunk. They may not do the whole, like, they don't go with the goggles and the gears, but like you can kind of tell like certain people like are kind of into it because it kind of filters and trickles into the work.
Yeah.
I was going to say, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say that's a very wise second grader you were talking to. What were you
that was the same second graders that told me, Miss Theresa, some things should not be invented, even if they are a good idea. And I was like, woo! If only the guy who made Swiffer and curing cups could hear that right now.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you ever like follow up? Do you ever hear? My mom was a teacher too, and I know sometimes she hears from students that she taught. Do you ever hear from your students later on?
I do. I hear from them a lot. So my pirate thing, the kids got me a lot of the stuff that's in my studio about pirates. We used to celebrate National Talk Like a Pirate Day, right? And that's on September 19th. So it's coming up, kids. And I would take them, we would dress like pirates, and we would go to Pirate Cove, which is a putt-putt golf place in Gwinnett, and we would play putt-putt golf, but I made them keep score, right? And so years later, I had a student, she swore at me because she could do that because she grown. She was like, damn it, Miss Theresa, you were teaching us math. We were learning integers. I was like, yeah, you were. And she's like, so I kind of could sneak learning in on them in different ways. And, as they become adults, they're like, oh my God, because I did a thing called reality math every winter, right between Thanksgiving and Christmas break, where they were given a budget. They were given, constant, things happen cards, and they had to budget a year, and then here, fill out these taxes. So I showed them how to fill out tax forms and how to write checks and how to reconcile checkbooks when that was a thing, and what interest was like, and what it meant that when you use a coupon, what did that look like? And so, like, my kids, when they got to college, the kids were freaking out because they didn't know how to do, consumer mathematical things. My kids were like, I'm thinking
you really do need to go open your own school.
I do.
Definitely. All the students would come out extremely philosophical and also very competitive.
No, and I've had a couple
and financially literate.
Right, financial literacy is a thing. I've had a couple be like, man, I wish you were still teaching. I would totally let you teach my kid. But I do a lot of summer camps, so I have had the opportunity to teach a couple of my former students' children because they were at AILA camp or at one of the other camps that I work at. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
Very nice. So let's like you already mentioned your website at the top. Like where else can people find you online if they want to at you?
I am on Instagram at She Pirate Poet, and just Theresa Davis on Facebook. I have a fan page, whatever they call it. Yeah, it's the Arts Exchange. I'm here most days. I have a studio here, and I do a lot of workshops and a lot of classes. I'm actually meeting with a group next week to possibly start a new alliance with another group of young people. A little contentious banned book library gave us we got our own banned book library. It's out front of the building. I'm excited. I love literacy. I love teaching young people to love to read and then to respond to what they're reading artistically. So hopefully this will be a nice fit. But yeah, come to the Arts Exchange, find me.
Very nice. Very nice.
My daughter's artsexchange.org is the website.
Yeah, we'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Okay.
Yeah, like I know we're getting close to the end of the hour here, so if we need to let you go, like we'll wrap it up. But thanks for coming out, and we'll happily share the links to Java Speaks. Like that's virtual. Is there like a specific website for that, or do people just need to follow you?
They can usually get their tickets. Java Speaks has its own Facebook page, so I usually put the events on there. But I'll send you all those URL thingies.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for coming out. And I've been trying to like track you down for a while.
Thank you for finding me. Yay.
Yeah.
I finally pulled the Kodak card and said like, hey, Kodak, what's her info? I need to.
I know sometimes that's one of the things that has affected me negatively since 2020. My sense of time is so off. Like,
yep.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
I
think everybody has a little bit of it.
Yeah, mine was just completely warped. So I'd be like, what day is it this week?
Yeah, same. But thank you all so much for having me.
That will be all for this episode. To keep up with the show, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Scratch Claw Push. If social media isn't your thing, you can contact us at scratchclawpush@gmail.com. This podcast has been a Carcutta Media production. For a full list of our podcasts, go to carcuttamedia.com/podcasts. This recording, or any portion thereof, may not be reproduced or used in any manner whatsoever without the express written permission of the publisher, except for use of brief quotations in review. Copyright 2023 by Carcutta Media, LLC. All rights reserved.